Traffic impact assessment.
Traffic impact assessment,
Okay,
ma'am.
sige.
Kim, share screen, Kim.
Okay. We can record para sa exam later on.
Mag-share screen ako, ma'am.
Sige. Thank you. Wala pa yung soundar? Oh, Anil.
Nag-loading pa siya, ma'am.
Kisang presenter sa inyo hang team
A good day
leader?
to everyone. A good day to everyone.
Neil, kisay presenter?
Si Anton Villanueva, ma'am.
Okay, go.
This is Traffic Impact Assessment for Sustainable Urban Engineering, as presented by Kim Nale, Neil Travilla, and Anton Villanueva. Transportation is a vital part of economic growth. The movement of people, goods, and services provides major economic opportunities for the community, encouraging development. Traffic impact assessment is an important tool for assessing the possible impacts of traffic generated by a proposed development to the surrounding transportation system. It helps the developers and urban planners in forecasting the future conditions of the network, allowing further specifications or alterations in its design process that improves or accounts for the existing and potential traffic conditions. Moreover, with identified traffic conditions, land use optimization and road network design will be easier to facilitate due to the collected traffic data and projections. To preface, these are the common terms that we will encounter throughout this presentation. Travel demand is the quantity and type of travel people would choose under specific conditions. For example, for short distances, people tend to walk, or for long distances, people tend to travel by car. Origin destination is a movement of people or trips between 2 points from an origin to a destination. Traffic volume is the number of vehicles per unit of time. This represents how crowded a road link is. LOS, or level of service, is the quality of road network service. To put it simply, it describes how fluid a road network is. A road junction is a location in a road network where traffic can change directions and routes. Urbanization is a major force that catalyzes growth and development. Cities are centers of economic activity, thus naturally, it encourages population movement. However, without careful planning and management, it gives rise to detrimental issues and consequences. Traffic congestion stems from extensive development of certain areas without regard to equivalent transportation infrastructure like roads, parking, and etc. These significant developments that are usually commercial or industrial in nature are attracting huge volume, motor, and pedestrian traffic. With the increase of the population comes the challenge of accommodation. Appropriate facilities should be available. However, if not monitored, it encourages the formation of slums, which are areas with poor living conditions. The increase in demand calls for an equivalent increase in supply. Thus, more energy, food, and water is produced or imported and consumed by a highly urbanized city. There are more cars, industries, and people contributing to the pollution of the environment and emission of greenhouse gases, which contribute greatly to the global climate problem. Thus, with sustainable and optimized land use and transportation planning, these disruptive circumstances can be alleviated and improved. Traffic Impact Assessment, or TIA, is a useful planning tool that is commonly utilized by local governments, especially for traffic management and planning for projects regarding their respective transportation systems and road networks. Traffic Impact Assessment is performed in locations where potential development projects are performed in close proximity or adjacent to major road networks. Traffic impact assessment is also most commonly performed when the road networks adjacent to the said development projects are crucial enough that potential problems that can be caused when the development is pushed through, such as unforeseen congestion and/or safety issues of the latter road networks, lead to massive impediments to the said road networks. Traffic impact assessments are a requirement to development projects since changes in traffic determine if the development project necessitates changes in the public transportation system. Traffic impact assessment studies are performed in the latter areas in order to obtain the following transportation variables and data: traffic volume and road capacity, parking supply and demand, road capacity and LOS, and probability of accidents and safety issues to occur. Traffic impact assessment studies are performed by traffic consultants and consists of 5 major stages. First, determining the scope of work. Second, the collection of traffic data. Third, the actual traffic impact assessment. Fourth, visualization of impacts of development and remedial measures to mitigate said impact. And lastly, the creation and submission of the TIA report. In determining the scope of work, the traffic consultants determine the study area in which the traffic impact assessment study is to be performed and the specific locations within the study area where primary data will be collected from. Next, primary and secondary traffic data is collected by the traffic consultants and engineers. Primary traffic data consists of data obtained firsthand by the traffic consultants, traffic planners, and engineers. These sets of data are commonly obtained by traffic surveys performed on-site or via technology that allows automated data collection, such as AI-based video analytical data collection, technical traffic sensors, and etc. Secondary traffic data is obtained from existing road traffic volume data obtained from the government, the local authorities, and/or past traffic analysis studies. After the collection of data, proper traffic impact assessment is performed, wherein using the data obtained from both primary and secondary data collection, the possible impacts of the development project are forecasted and analyzed. To specify, the traffic consultants and engineers performing the assessment focus on the analysis of existing traffic conditions, forecasting any possible growth in traffic caused by the development, changes to trip generation and distribution, identification of issues and problems that the development would pose to the roads and junctions adjacent to it, and the proposal of traffic and safety risk mitigation measures that can diminish the above impacts caused by the development. After the impacts, issues, problems, and mitigation measures have been made, the traffic consultants and engineers will then visualize or model the said impacts and the effects of their proposed mitigation measures using traffic simulation software to formulate a clear assessment before sending the results of their traffic impact assessment study to the needed authorities. To show the relationship between traffic impact assessment and sustainability, we will present 2 case studies, one in Asia and one in Europe. The study in Asia compared 2 developments in Metro Manila with their compliance with TIA for the sustainability of traffic management. The first development is Sky City. This project was envisioned to be the tallest building in the Philippines. Unfortunately, the developers failed to provide any effort to address its potential traffic impacts. As a result of their failure to conduct traffic impact assessment and their blatant disregard for the stakeholders' concerns, the EIARC rejected its application. On the other hand, is the 670 Heights development, a 40-story mixed-use building representing the ideal situation. The developer had complied with the EIARC recommendations and recognized the importance of traffic impact assessment. These assessments include the level of service case scenarios from 2004, 2009, and 2020. The developer was granted an ECC and the project was scheduled for completion in 2006. From this comparison, Regidor developed 3 components that advocate traffic impact assessment for sustainable traffic management in Metro Manila. The first focuses on developing management plans, forecasting traffic congestion, and developing solutions to perceived problems. The second highlights the importance of government involvement in requiring traffic impact assessment. And the third emphasizes that the reliability and completeness of traffic impact assessment are essential for it to be functional. The next case study is about the impact assessment of sustainable mobility in Europe's 6 touristic cities. The European Commission funded an initiative to implement solutions in these cities. Amongst the study's priorities is to apply a consistent and efficient methodological framework to assess the impacts of the designed mobility measures. In this case, the traffic impact assessment comes into use in achieving sustainable urban development of these 6 cities. They are able to provide 11 mobility measures in the city of Rethymno, which are summarized in the slide. As shown, all of the 11 measures can be categorized according to environmental, social, and economic aspects. The environmental aspect includes 1. The active, healthy, and inclusive mobility for all by promoting a car-free lifestyle. 2. Introducing electric vehicles for public transport. And 3. Introducing solar-powered EVs charging points. All of these aim to maintain a viable natural environment. The social aspect includes 1. Behavioral change of citizens towards sharing mobility modes. 2. Addressing the traffic congestion surrounding schools. 3. Upgrading public transport services with rescheduled plans and operations. And 4. Combining the needs of tourists and residents. All of these aim to nurture the community. The economic aspect includes 1. Involving smart systems for urban planners, operators, and users. 2. Optimizing freight distribution to decrease traffic congestion. 3. New products and services combining tourism and mobility. And 4. Setting up a business model to operate biodiesel chains locally. All of these are done to suffice the economy. The presented case studies have proven that communities need traffic impact assessment as an essential guide in sustainable planning, development, and forecasting of impacts. For a transport system to be sustainable, it must fulfill its 3 pillars such as environmental, social, and economical, which was highlighted in Case 2. Case 1, on the other hand, has emphasized the importance of traffic impact assessment in policies. Developers must not neglect or take these assessments for granted, especially when they are situated in traffic areas. The government and development agencies must also take an active role in promoting traffic impact assessment. Traffic impact assessments have been proven to consider the systematic impacts of projects, which make them a great tool for sustainability. Thus, traffic impact assessment paves the way for communities to present solutions in the realm of transportation and sustainable development as a whole. That is all for our presentation for today. We hope that you learned something about traffic impact assessment and its role in sustainable development in engineering. These are our references.
Okay, thank you for the group. Anton, thank you for the presentation. I'm very grateful na imong na-connect sa sustainable development ang imong topic. No? And I guess it's also very familiar to you because I already introduced transportation engineering. And last semester, we also discussed about, this semester, we to discuss about urban development and sustainable applications. But I'd like to stress on the application sa local nato, no? Through sa Philippines, Engineer Dr. Hedor, one of my colleagues sa University of the Philippines, initiated a project in relation to TIA. And in fact, I'm looking at their paper right now. Kaya-download na ako for Engineer Kahulugan because she wanted to have a copy. And today I'm supposed to submit a copy of TIA, the Philippine TIA recommendation for national TIA applications sa atong RTA and atong one of our consultants sa CP, si Engineer Kahulugan. The point being is that somehow tama kaayo si Anton in discussing that some people do not follow recommendations, do not even attempt to handle PIA with respect to projects. And sometimes it's up to the local government to really implement PIA. Right now, Cagayan de Oro is trying to initiate PIA. And for the last 2 years, 3 years rather, I was able to handle two PIAs, a major for a subdivision and a um, condominium application. And this within this year, before I finish the year 2021, I have one PIA sa usa ka commercial center. And then next year, it's a bigger PIA for a mixed land use application. Sometimes it's very sad to practice your profession when people do not appreciate what you are doing. In particular, some of the clients will be asking, "Nanong na ay PIA para asa na siya?" And so always orient them that when we talk about uh, industrial or construction of a big facility, we usually have EIA, environmental impact assessment. And because of that, we look into the impact of any projects in relation to civil works and any professions of engineering in relation to the impact on the environment. And so with a traffic impact assessment, no, because sometimes na-overlook nato that our road is very limited. And when we talk about traffic, it really creates uh, bigger issues when we talk about how a project will generate population or a group of people that will create more additional traffic to the actual road. Usually, a distinction is that when we have facility like a subdivision or a facility like an industrial plant or facility such as a condominium or a facility which is a commercial complex, that facility in itself creates traffic. And then, of course, your actual road, na siya kaugalingon traffic, no? More so when it's residential, because residential would mean um, entailing projects which will require building or structure such as housing, would presumably kay maka-afford man sila mag-create og balay, maghimo og balay, then therefore the resident in itself can also buy a single unit of a vehicle, no? And that creates additional traffic on the road. So kung ang facility mo nimo is residential, that's what's expected when you do PIA, traffic impact assessment. And if it's a condominium, presumably mao gyapon because condominium have parking lots, no? Kung sa mga balay, it's actually parking space by virtue of garage. But in terms of commercial complex naman, like a restaurant, a hotel, na po na sila required parking and it entails traffic. So when we talk about traffic impact assessment, the thing is sometimes confused bitaw sila why is it necessary. So ako din gina-explain na because your project will create impact sa road and we have limited road sa Cagayan. As simple as that, masabtan nila. And I always tell them that when I do consultancy for the traffic impact assessment, my recommendation should be followed, no? Usually duha imo recommendation. The first is recommendation nimo para sa imong client, and ang second recommendation para sa city. Because you're trying to help the city or the agency of the government that you are really doing something with your client, no? Unsa imong ma-recommend para sa ilaha nga both ang parties, the client at the same time the government will agree upon. Usually, I will start with setting the tone for recommendations sa client because if the client will not be able to comply with the recommendation, that creates the problem. Because no PIA will be approved by the local government, mga ma-forward pa ingon sa Office of the Building Official, if it itself mag-create siya havoc or chaos sa dalan, no? So let us just say we have a small entity, let's say isa ka lang ka restaurant, pero ang iyang traffic flow kay maka-generate siya impact sa immediate intersection. So kung doon siya sa intersection ng usa ka restaurant, syempre kung naaman ta siya parking lot, required man sa National Building Code that every commercial complex or establishment will have a parking for their client. In itself, pag mag-enter o egress diha sa ilahang property, sa ilang establishment, mag-create na siya traffic sa roadway. So that's the rationale behind why you explain to the client the situation of the existing karon and the situation when the construction and ultimately the establishment will open, what will happen to the traffic then. Um, the other item to be considered is that when it comes to civil engineering applications, we do know na ang pinaka-basic traffic volume count, vehicle classification, level of service for the road. And then you will have parking and commercial complex, expected number of people, no? Let's say sa isa ka square area of a restaurant, let's say 30 square meters, bilang gi-expect na client or customer mo come in and out. And because if you have that client na number, that's the population that you are projecting in terms of traffic volume na ma-add on in that establishment. So kung parking lot po ng imong tanaw, then i-add on pag mo kung na siya parking space nga i-allocate sa gawa sa iyong establishment. That's another add-on. So that's facility volume bali nga imong gi-expect pag magawas enter siya sa isa ka establishment. Wala pa'y labot katong nasa dalan. So in facility and actual road facility nga traffic imong ginatanaw. And when you talk about traffic sa road, it's actually travel demand related, level of service, and then of course, projections nimo for the time being, wala pa siya na-establish ang project. During that time na ma-establish ang project, and in the 5 or 10 years, kung ma-fully occupied na ang project. Say for example, 100% na occupancy sa condominium in 10 years time, or 50% pa lang siya in 5 years time ang occupancy. Because then, the moment mag-increase na ang numbers occupancy sa isa ka property or establishment, the tendency then, mudaghan gid ang tao nga mobalik at sulod ang nga property. So that's how you see, how you present a traffic impact assessment in terms of road. No? And again, na-mention ni Anton the rationale why we have to do traffic impact assessment. So right now, what I'm asking yesterday during sa technical working group meeting na sa RTA and the city planning, city engineering, and DPWH is that ako yung gihatod sa ilang, it's important for you to be aware unsa pud ang rationale behind sa PIA because it's very unfortunate to hear nga even the agency of the local government is not quite familiar unsa ang purpose sa PIA. So it should be nga sila mismo aware sila unsa ang PIA and para sa asa siya kay dili ra na siya burden sa RTA. Dili lang pud na siya burden sa katong consultant nga naghimo sa evaluation sa project, but rather it's also the burden of the city planning development office, LTFRB, LPO, even ang city engineering, DPWH, and the RTA. Why? Because kung magkinahanglan gid og jeepney para anang nga kanang subdivision, then ihatod sila nga recommendation sa LTFRB. Example is mga subdivision karon like Gran Europa, no? Ang Gran Europa, di man pwede nga daghanon nato ang jeep para lang adto sa Gran Europa. So they created their own route kanang service van para mosulod sa subdivision and magawas and maura to ang ilahang public transport within sa subdivision so that dili tanan dayon magsakay sa ilang each individual nga sakyanan para lang makanaog downtown, no? So that's the reason nga sa LTFRB pananghiran sila og franchise para ang number of units nga need kaayo sa usa ka subdivision will be allocated, and so that not all people in the subdivision will be really requiring to have their own car. The same na sa recommendation when you have condominiums, dili nimo tanan i-allocate nga tanan tao sa condominium will have their own parking lot and then parked vehicle. Kaya otherwise, paggawa sa subdivision sa condominium nga vertical, it will create traffic in an intersection adjacent to the condominium or the road itself adjacent to the condominium. So those things matter. And somehow, right now, the government is really putting in place policies as well as penalties for those who are not complying. So I'm happy to share that to everyone so that later on, if you have an opportunity to really engage in projects, you will also be very aware of that. 7 years ago, I have a student who's one of the project engineer in now in one condominium, 4 condominiums na project, and giduulan ko niya, Ma'am Annabelle, we need our EIA, can you check on this because of this and that. So before pa mag-start, nag-ingon ko sa ila usa lang problema so that they will not spend so much ako sa lagi ingandaan nga mao niya ako nakita nga issue ninyo, please resolve it para pag-abot sa akong PIA medyo hapsay na din siya na ako gihatag ang recommendation kay kung mag-adjust pag mag-analyze ko and everything, pero ang ending din kay ma-burden mo sa responsibility of doing something based on my recommendation. That's another problem to tackle, and yet nagbayad na mo sa ako. Might be better if karon pa lang daan, ma-aware mo nga mao niya ako nakitaan And so therefore, kung mag-analyze na ko karon, mahatod ninyo ang inyong solution para at least magkasinabot ta how we will present it to the local government, and para pud ang local government dali nila masabtan atong recommendation and sila mag-approve sa inyong project. So that's how it is, no? Sa mga environmental impact assessment, the same na siya kay when we have EIA, if na impact sa usa ka area ang usa ka project, dili gid mahimo ang usa ka project. Case in point, one company consultant of a company was trying to provide Cagayan de Oro a sewerage system. Unsa man ang sewerage system, ma? So if you have water sa mga balay, at the end of the day, ang atong water, duha man na siya wastewater and disposal of normal nga water. So ang wastewater, katong mga water gikan sa city nga naagid siya particular hugaw nga dili diretso malabay nato sa dagat or sa suba. So those things such as wastewater from chemical plant or wastewater from hospital or wastewater from industrial site, those things are different, no? Kaya naman sila mga microbes, bacteria sa water, so when they wash sa hospital, daghan kay na siya. So the water that they have will be transferred to a facility where that facility will do the wastewater treatment, no? So kung maabot na siya dito, i-treat man na ang water before siya i-dispose sa actual nga open water. So in the case of EIA, if dili ma-satisfy ang consultant sa imong process o di po malipay or ma-satisfy ang DNR, EMB, and the city itself with respect to your proposal for the wastewater and the recommendation for the wastewater processing, then of course, dili gid na mahimo ang project. Matangkong gid na siya. And so all project karon, housing, vertical, horizontal, industrial, are subjected to EIA and TIA. And I hope mas na-enhance na sa presentation karon ni sa group ni Anton. Thank you. May question sa class? Kasi na mo interesting question, I could help you out. Practice mo po kung at least aware mo sa inyong gabuhato. Questions? Wala. Sige, let's have the second group. Thank you guys sa presentation sa first group. Dili pa ko maka-grade because I need to see your handouts nga gi-revise, ha? Anton and company?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next group. Next group.
May ma'am.
Okay. Sustainable products. Where should I hide? Where should I hide? Sustainable product, reminder lang ha, inyong handout should be changed and kindly place appropriately ang mga bullet in a corner kay murag heightened ra kaayo ang bullet to one side, no, indention.
Okay, ma'am. Ang pato lang mga figures, ma'am.
Figures and ang detail kay gamay ra kay sulod inyong handout.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Kisay mag-present?
Ako, ma'am.
Okay, sige Roy. Go ahead.
So, good day, everyone. Ma'am. Audio, ma'am. The
Malungga.
group is here to present about a sustainable product. I'm Roy Sambas. I'm here with Justin Abunda and Kiana Alarcon.
Hello.
So before we tackle about sustainable product, we will first discuss what about becoming a sustainable consumer. For anyone who wants to develop a sustainable lifestyle, they must revisit and take a look at the type of product they consume every day. As a consumer, we must educate ourselves and understand what it means to have a sustainable lifestyle and how to become a sustainable consumer. Yes, not every product is perfectly 100% sustainable. For maybe some of the product in its life cycle, it may create some waste, but the point we are trying to create here is that we must commit to using sustainable products and doing small things to help improve our lifestyle and reduce our daily waste production. So moving on, what is sustainable product? Sustainable products are products made from either renewable resources and recyclable materials. Um, Renewable resources include biomass energy such as ethanol, hydropower, geothermal power, wind energy, and solar energy. Um, a product is also considered sustainable if it is biodegradable or reusable. It is also good to take note that not all products are 100% sustainable, for there will be wastes created at some point of its life cycle. One example of a reusable product is a eco bag, and for it is made, you can use it again after you used it once. So here are some factors to consider if a product is sustainable or not. One is the types of resources used. Um, for this factor, we must know, as a consumer, we must know what resources are used when making the product, for resources that has big, because resources has a big contribution to the overall sustainability of the product. Second, our second factor to consider is the impact of the product towards the environment and consumers. Some some products that pose a good impact to the environment is the wind turbine, which creates renewable resource and energy, and it has a good impact toward consumers because we have free energy that we can take from the wind. Next factor is the treatment towards workers. Next is socially appropriate. Uh, Next is for the product to be socially appropriate. One example of a product that is not socially appropriate are products that have animal fur. For they for real animal furs, they will use real animals to create those products, which is not ethically and socially appropriate. And last factor to consider if a product is sustainable is the cost of the product. So the figure you see here shows the attributes of more sustainable product. In the first part, we have resource base, which is followed by life cycle impacts and benefits, then human and ecological toxicity. Next is social economic impacts and benefits, total costs and life cycle costs, and lastly, technical performance fit for purpose, which then goes back to resource base. For the resource base, is basically the materials used in products come from a resource base, and the way those resources are managed, conserved, or protected is a major contributor to the overall sustainability of the product. As a consumer, we must always consider the type of resources and where those resources came from, as resources are the main issue in sustainability of a product. And sustainability issues may vary depending on the product. Second is the life cycle impacts and benefits. For this, experience shows that this tool is best for understanding globally significant impacts, such as the contribution of the product system to climate change through the release of greenhouse gases across the system, and readily quantifiable resources flow, such as the amount of renewable and non-renewable primary energy consumed across the system, or the amount of waste generated when producing a product. Next is next in the attribute is the human and ecological toxicity. For this attribute, it is very important to understand how the workers or consumers are exposure to these substances is being managed, and also how potential releases of these substances to the environment are being managed. Whether hazardous substances are recovered safely is a key factor. Next is the socio-economic impacts and benefits of a sustainable product. These factors incorporate a, a wide range of issues along the value chain of the product. This might include worker treatment and labor issues in upstream resource industries, fair allocation of revenues and profits with supply chain partners, or avoidance of the use of child labor or conflict minerals. Next is the total cost and the life cycle cost of a product. Costs built into production are often left out and are not included for when you buy the product. The total cost ownership is about the true cost to the purchaser of owning the product, taking into consideration a thorough range of cost categories such as waste disposal, product loss, worker health and safety, protective equipment requirements, and many others. Lastly is the technical performance fit for purpose. In this attribute, technical performance addresses the standard type of criteria that are often considered when evaluating a product, such as it fits for purpose and does it meet quality for standards. So that's for the attributes of more sustainable products. Next, for these are some things to look out for when buying sustainable products. First thing to look out for is if it is locally sourced. Next is if it is ethically made, if it is natural and or organic product, if the product is biodegradable, meaning it can easily be decomposed. It was Next is if it was made to order, meaning it was only made after you order it to reduce the use of resources and waste wasted reduce the waste of resource. And lastly is if it is upcycled and or has a long life cycle. Upcycled product basically means that the materials used to create this product are reused to create a product that is of higher quality or value than the original product. These reused materials are usually from discarded objects or materials like plastic bottles, wood planks, old newspapers, etc. Here are some benefits for using sustainable products. One benefit is it can reduce the waste that we produce, because for one, sustainable products are long lasting, meaning that you won't have to buy as many products as you would if it was not sustainable. And two, it is sometimes made from renewable resource or recycled materials, meaning old materials are reused to create the product. Next is save natural resources. So again, it is some sustainable products are uses old materials. And next, it reduces carbon emissions. Next is the sustainable products uses some sustainable products use use renewable resource as their source of energy, and renewable resource like solar energy, wind, falling water, the heat of the earth, etc. And lastly, they use recyclable materials to reduce waste production. Here are some examples of sustainable product. One is recycled toilet tissue. This tissue is made out of recycled paper, fibers, bamboo, or sugarcane, and it saves the use of other resource because plant fibers and bamboo or sugarcane are abundant resources that we have. Next example are eco bags. Eco bags are made out of polypropylene, which is biodegradable and they decompose easily. You can also say that energy that comes from renewable resource like solar energy, wind, falling water, and heat of the earth are also sustainable products, for they are a product of a type of renewable resources. Now I will discuss some applications of sustainable product. One is in consumption, next is mobility, and lastly in lifestyle. For sustainability and consumption, as a consumer, we must be aware of the products we use and consume. Here are some practices that show sustainability and consumption. First is use eco bags in buying groceries so that you can reuse these eco bags in the future when you go buy your groceries again. Next is buy less items that use single-use plastics to lessen the plastic waste that we produce every day. Third is if you're an avid drinker of water, you can buy water tumbler instead of plastic bottles so that you can reuse this water tumbler and refill water if you want. Lastly is buy products that are made from recycled products. Next, sustainability is the sustainability in mobility. Opt for bicycles instead of using cars to reduce carbon emissions. And also bicycles are also a good form of exercise. Second is encourage the use of public transport and carpooling to reduce carbon emission and reduce the amount of vehicles that are present in road and lessen traffic. Lastly is the sustainability in lifestyle. First, sustainability in lifestyle is to walk more to reduce carbon emission. Walking is also promotes good health and is a very good form of exercise. Second is to utilize products that use renewable energy, like solar powered lights and other products that use renewable energy. And lastly, practice reduce, reuse, recycle. Here are our references for this report. And that is the end. Hope you learned something. Have a good day today.
Thank you kaayo, Roy, sa presentation. May question sa class? Dili lagi mo ga question, maulaw mo? Hinugsan mo, paabot sa sa quiz or sa
Maulaw,
exam
guys.
ka pamutana. Walay question?
Wala ra sab, ma'am.
Sige. Kanang ako lang i-add katong discussion siguro. Di lang ko mag-question kang ano no, Roy. What Roy have presented is about sustainability of a product being developed for a certain purpose. So I think ang primary gid ana is katuyang giingon nga we kind of look at if the side of the consumer and the side of those who produce the product. The side of the consumer, it is really related to why we need the product and is it necessary, because sometimes ang product nga i-produce would just be a want, no, wanted item lang siya, like the things that we desire but is not out of a important need, no, maybe funky siya or something just needed because trending siya. That's the concept there. We know that some countries do forego that idea because ang ilang thinking is marketing the product itself. But as a wise consumer, you should know in terms of how you will be able to adopt sustainable effort in your own way, to look at if the item that you're buying is really a need or a certain want lang siya. Na atay limit is set so that we can at least help set the efforts of being sustainable by ourselves, no, as a consumer. On the other side, it's really related to the provider as well, or the producer of the product, no? Kasi sometimes when we produce, we kind of look at things in a way na economics related lang. If we get profit out of the product that we are marketing, no? And somehow we do not even have that kind of ethical value in terms of what we produce that creates impact to the environment. And that's where we come in terms of sustainable effort, particularly sa engineering effort nato. We look at these things in perspective so that at least our contribution as a provider will that be addressed, also directed to the goal of sustainable development and sustainable effort, no? I've mentioned before, in the Philippines, we already have companies who are really engaged into helping out because we know that the adverse effect or the the deterioration of some things in our environment are basically because of our human intervention, human activities. And so the other side of that is to look at then also, ganina I mentioned about being the consumer and being the producer of the product. On the other side is to look at the product itself, no? Sometimes when we look at product, we kind of think na we will be very sustainable if the product at the end of the lifetime sa product is that organic siya, so dali ra siya ma-degrade, no? Kung natay something gibuild nga magamit and ma-consume, at the end of the day dali ra siya ma-decompose, because that's actually sustainable na daan. Say the food that we eat, no, the food that we eat are partly food waste at the end of the day, and that food waste becomes a biodegradable material, so easily balance in terms of decomposing materials at the environment. Ang problem is when we have something from a product that creates a container, and that container of the food that we eat, for example, cannot even be sustained in terms of decomposition of the container. Like products nga na ay metal implication, like tin cans or kana mga steel container, aluminum or something like that. Those things takes time to decompose in our environment, and over time that creates our problem with pollution, particularly land pollution, because it becomes a non-biodegradable waste. So that's how we see them things in terms of the product. So the first to look at them in that example is that if the product is organic, because if the product is organic, by virtue of the idea that it's biodegradable, it's easily decomposable. So that's also the rationale why everyone is saying buy organic, no? Support organic, okay? Because they're using material which are not harmful, because they're not putting any chemicals additional to the material that will actually create problems with the human need for that material. But at the same time, they're not using chemicals from any form, like a synthetic material, just to create the product. Kasi ang mga synthetic is laboratory made, and those laboratory made items, labi na kung chemically gi-change ang chemical composition or gi-simulate ng iyang composition para lang siya ma-create ang synthetic material, that takes time to degrade in the environment. So the concept is buy organic, and then with that we are supporting sustainable product. So that goes along with a lot of things na organic, no? And primarily organic is really materials that we use at home or materials that we consume, no? of so product that we consume, rather mga food and then material sa balay nga atong gamiton. Even to the point of saying paper in itself is an organic material, paper. So that's the reason nga we avoid plastics, because containers with brown paper, for example, is easily managed and decomposed compared to a plastic container, which is an issue to our environment. The second, as mentioned ni Roy, is katong upscaled product. Upscaled product would mean imo siyang gi-change ang iyahang ang setup so that ma-reuse nimo siya or ma-recycle to a new product. So an example, Anna, is when we have sa atong FYPS before, for the last 10 years, we have produced byproducts of reused material. So natay mga product kagigamit for construction, concrete, pavement, non-structural material, tiling, roofing, those things na parts sa atong construction sa building, no. Most of them are recycled products, such as those nga gikan sa plastics or recycled plastics, and then glass, recycled glass, mga items, window glass and those things na glass related. And then we have also fibers, no, mga fibers nga gikan sa plastics, maybe a form of plastic nga inyong gihimong fiber, and some of which also are those items na gikan sa mga manufacturing plant nga excess na sa ilahang gamit, gihimong fiber para sa usa ka concrete material. The other one also is katong materials which are organic in relation to our discussion. So organic na siya daan because it's byproduct recycled, maybe fly ash from volcanic eruption, that's actually organic. So fly ash was used as a substitute for cement, and then the study was made for concrete applications as structural member. Example po is the use of bagas. Bagas is byproduct of kaning sa corn production sa crop, and you have bagas as fiber used for concrete application. And then another one is kana mga rice hull. Rice hull is byproduct again of rice after being shelled from crop production. Mahimo siyang rice hull, and the rice hull was utilized or is utilized as a byproduct for concrete application. Kay kung imo siyang sunugon, mura man siya fly ash. Okay? And then it can enhance the property of the concrete as partly substitute or alternative for cement. The other one is kanang mga gikan sa coconut, coconut application, like coconut husk, coconut fiber, and tanang parts of coconut nga magamit for construction. And of course, the organic product that we have, the usual, we use coconut as lumber, we use bamboo as lumber for our construction. In place of the hardwood, no? Because we are saying we have to be sustainable in terms of our construction method for housing and shelter, and using organic material or biodegradable material for atong balay. Dili man siguro necessary nga we have projected our shelter as in a long term application, but we know fairly that these are organic and later on we have to replace them. But we are also looking at if the material that we're using kung organic is cheaper compared sa mga material na long lasting, so that at least na i-balance sa cost benefit analysis nila sa material. And the third, I guess, is about sustainable production of the product. Kasi some products being made kung synthetic siya, somehow pwede po nga sustainable iyang pag-produce. Say for example, na-mention ni Roy ganina, is when you are using energy which is sustainable. So ang pag-produce sa kuryente para sa planta nga maghimo sa produkto, sustainable siya, dili siya kanang dili ang planta gipadagan through nuclear maybe or through coal, in terms of energy, in terms of production, so that at least dili taga destroy sa environment. Kay coal, pag mag-burn ta og product or maghimo tag process sa product, tendency ang coal mag-create og emissions sa environment. So with nuclear, no, we know the risk with nuclear energy being used for generation of power sa mga industrial plant. Similar case in Japan, now it's happening karon yan apag atoy leak sa Fukushima. And so these things are part of the consideration of that. Even to the point of saying na sustainable ang imong pagkuha sa product. Or for example, if you are outsourcing the product from from a group of people who are producing the product sustainably, no? Those are part of sustainable effort in doing the product. If you are uh, if you are if you are supporting artisans are people who are skilled in producing a product na very simplified siguro ang method, very not into technology, but rather more skilled work related, and you are supporting social aspect and the economic value of people who are producing the product. That's sustainable effort. No? The other one is when you use the product without any chemicals sa process, so that sustainable ang imong production food. So it's really related to how you produce the product. Ang third nga aspect, sustainable production of the product in terms of processing. Kasi sometimes when we place something sa product just to make the product beautiful, for example, but ang imong gibutang anang add-on is really not sustainable, then that already entails na ang imong product mismo is not really sustainable. So man ako example sa construction ana. Ang part sa construction, I think na mention ni Roy kaganina, is that when we are working on laborers on the field to work with our construction. So ang sustainable effort nato is when we hire people who are within the community, and then we do not adopt any kuan lugar, no, kana interventions nga fully machine related and equipment related nga dili na nato matabangan ang community in terms of social aspect of employing people. The other one is kung na-produce kag product pero it's unethical because human labor is very low, and then you are employing kana mga underage people or people who are not supposed to work na somehow na sa ubang countries mo na issue nila when they produce product kay mga bata or mga teenagers ilang gihire as workers. Barato kayo ang sweldo, and then dili ethical ang consideration sa paghatag sa labor costs sa trabaho. So those are unsustainable process of doing the job. I think I think that's of the things that we are looking at kung sa engineering tano. The other one nga process nga ko i-inculcate sa inyo is when we do construction work side, sometimes karon sa mga new technologies that we have, na may mga product na sustainable mismo ang iyahang idea of doing things, like instead of the conventional nga maghimo kag concrete, dadako kay ang volume sa concrete ang gamiton og cement nga material, raw material para maproduce ang sa kabalay, nanay mga prefabricated material. So prefabricated are actually products nga lightweight, and then dili kayo siya costly in terms of iyang production, kay environmentally kuan siya sound iyang pagproduce, no. Those are mga items na i-consider nato sa atong design, kay basin pwede ra nga ma-prefab ta kay ma-lower ang cost, at the same time sturdy ang atong gigamit, tapos wala kayo siya yung material implication sa raw material nga gihimo para ma-produce ang product. Kasi sometimes na yung mga product nga intensive kay siya sa cost in terms of raw materials being used, and those are things like mga metal works. Metal works are mined metal. Mined metal would mean we're destroying so much of the environment just to get that metal ore, whether it is bronze, steel, and whatnot. We know that some of them are necessary, but of course, if entirety lang sa imong building is made of that, that's not a sustainable building in a way, no? Because you are mass producing shelters or buildings which are unsustainable in itself sa construction works. So I guess that's my promotion. If you have technologies or newfound materials which are really sustainable in application, adapt that, no? Pwede nimo i-recommend sa imong client nga we can do this. Mahal siya siguro, pero ang iyang cost is relevant in terms of future application, kay lightweight siya, and then sturdy ang material, but also of the same time ang iyang pag-produce ng material is not really that labor intensive, raw material intensive. So those things are balanced in terms of sustainable productions of product. Karon in the workforce sa usual na industry, they are replacing, for example, plastic using biodegradable paper, because we know fully that plastics create problems at ang environment. So a lot of people are looking at unsay potential sa paper na ma-recycle to become a product. And that's where we also come in as engineers, no, dili lang sa civil but also sa chemical, mechanical, electrical, those things. If you're familiar sa mga 3D printers, no? 3D printers is actually made baking product which are made from paper. So those things kay pwede na gamiton for industrial applications. I'm not saying pro kay kutanan sa 3D printer, but it helps a lot when you you kind of look at something in perspective, how you produce things in terms of design, and then looking if it works, and if it works, then ayaw pa siya i-mass produce, and then i-consider ang material for mass production of item. Because if it is this is degradable, that's okay. If not degradable, so ang imong concern is at the end of the life cycle sa usa ka material nga gi-produce, is it worth it? Basin matambak lang siya sa landfill at the end of the day, and we are mass producing unsustainable product which creates problem with our environment. Okay? Okay ba na tanan? Ang gasabtan ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sige.
Yes,
Anak
ma'am.
lang siguro for the day, so we can rest. You have deadlines tomorrow. Duha na inyong deadlines, no handouts, which are really a problem right now. Kaya nakita na ko plagiarize ang halos sa grupo. Not just for this section, other groups also. So yesterday, this morning, and this group, please prepare and redo your handouts. I appreciate the effort kaya nagbasa mo and all, but I will appreciate it more kung kamo mismo kabalo mo sa inyong gibuhat nga dili siya plagiarize. Second is tamoy deadline for tomorrow sa transportation engineering applications for sustainable urban design and planning. So you have in there katong eco driving program, which requires you to analyze it through Excel and then ibalhin sa Word ang inyong discussion. So kindly submit that all tomorrow. Okay?
Kuan na to, ma'am. Statistical analysis na to, ma'am.
Statistical analysis
Before
and
and after lang.
profiling. Duha man to, profiling and statistical analysis.
Sige, ma'am.
Okay. And then place the summaries dito sa isa ka word and discuss, no? Kay ang inyong Excel will be used only for my review kung tama inyong gibuhat in terms of what you're doing. And then be reminded, you have 2 weeks to produce your project, which is related to pre-final requirement, which is solid waste management sa inventory sa inyong balay, sa ka-household or tulo ka-household. Okay? So if you have any concern, mention lang permi sa class or call my attention through your Beedle so that mahitabangan tamo. Okay, so that will be all for the afternoon, everyone. Ako lang gi-shorten kay ta mo yung deadlines ugma na may adjust, and of course gamay ra man sa dinga class, you have only 6 presentations, so I could afford the extra time. Okay, so that will be all. By the way, before mo gahawa, Darren, can you check the attendance of everyone? We have 16, so 100% as attendance for the day.
Yes, ma'am.
And then be reminded, di ay tanan, please be aware and know nga natay midterm exam next week, Saturday. So I'll inform everyone on saang format sa exam, siguro Monday or Tuesday. And then I will ask you to prepare cover the discussion that I have from lesson 1 to lesson 5. Kana ang coverage sa exam. Lesson 1 and lesson 5 ni Ma'am Annabelle. Wala pa labot ang presentations. Okay. Sige. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Love
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.